I thought it would be just another cute video, the kind you click without thinking, the kind that usually ends with laughter or a soft smile. The thumbnail showed a tiny puppy with oversized paws and eyes too big for his face, harmless, innocent, forgettable. I almost scrolled past it, almost. The video began shakily, like someone filming in a hurry. Traffic noise filled the background. Distant horns, engines growling, the restless hum of a city that never pauses. The camera struggled to focus, shifting between blurred asphalt and flickers of movement. Then it steadied, and my chest tightened. A mother dog lay near the roadside, her body pressed awkwardly against the cracked pavement. She was sleeping. You could tell immediately. There was something unnatural in the stillness of her limbs, something unsettling in the way her ribs rose and fell too slowly, too unevenly. Dust clung to her fur. One ear twitched faintly, as if reacting to sounds she could barely hear. Her breathing was shallow, fragile, like a candle flame fighting invisible wind. Beside her stood the puppy. He was impossibly small, the kind of small that makes you instinctively protective. His fur was soft and uneven, still carrying that newborn fluffiness. His legs wobbled slightly as he shifted his weight, unsure of what he was seeing, unsure of what he was supposed to do. At first, he simply stared at her. The confusion in his eyes was unbearable. He nudged her gently with his nose. Nothing. He tried again, a little more insistently this time. His tiny head pressed against her cheek, his body leaning forward with surprising effort. When she did respond, a soft whine escaped him, barely audible under the roar of passing vehicles. It wasn't loud. It wasn't too dramatic. It was small, questioning, almost polite. Like he believed there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she would wake up any second. He pawed at her face. Still nothing. Cars rushed by only a few feet away, their speed creating bursts of wind that ruffled the puppy's fur. Pedestrians moved in and out of frame, legs passing like shadows. No one stopped. No one even slowed. The world continued with cruel efficiency, indifferent to the fragile scene unfolding at its edge. The puppy circled her. Slowly, carefully, as if searching for the right angle to solve this impossible problem, he sniffed her side, her neck, her motionless paws. Each movement carried growing urgency, yet also hesitation, the delicate balance between instinct and fear. His tail, once wagging in hopeful uncertainty, began to droop. The camera zoomed slightly, capturing the tremble in his small body. His ears flattened. Then came a sound that cut through everything. A sharper whimper, not confusion this time, fear. He pressed himself against her, curling awkwardly along her ribs. His tiny body rose and fell with her weak breathing. He licked her face once, twice, again, desperate, repetitive, pleading. It was the kind of persistence only love can produce, the kind that refuses to accept reality simply because reality is unbearable. She did move. The puppy froze. For a moment he became completely still, his head lifted, eyes wide. Something shifted inside him. Something subtle but undeniable. The uncertainty faded. The frantic, helpless energy dissolved. In its place came something startling, something far too mature for such a small creature. Determination. He stood up. Slowly, reluctantly. He looked at her one last time. And then, to my disbelief, he turned and ran away. He ran with the kind of urgency that did belong to something so small. His legs, still unsure and slightly unsteady, now moved with frantic purpose. The camera jerked as the person filming reacted, trying to keep him in frame. For a second he disappeared behind a blur of passing feet, then re-emerged, weaving dangerously close to the street. My breath caught. Vehicles thundered past, far too fast, far too close. The noise grew louder, sharper, horns slicing through the air, engines rumbling like distant storms. The puppy did hesitate. He darted toward the moving chaos, then stopped abruptly at the edge of the road, his tiny body trembling. For a heartbeat, he simply stood there, watching, calculating. Then he began to bark. It wasn't the playful, high-pitched yapping of a carefree pup. It was raw, strained, desperate. Each bark seemed to tear out of him, too big for his fragile chest. People turned their heads briefly, annoyed expressions flickering across their faces. A few glanced down, then continued walking. To them, he was just noise, just another stray adding to the city's endless soundtrack. But the puppy refused to be ignored. He rushed toward a passing woman, circling her legs, barking relentlessly. She startled, stepping aside with irritation, shaking her foot gently to shoo him away. The puppy stumbled, nearly losing balance, yet instantly regained himself. He did retreat. He persisted. He tugged at the hem of her clothing, lightly at first, then more insistently. She pulled away, frowning, her voice sharp though inaudible beneath the traffic. She walked faster. The puppy followed for several steps, his small paws slapping against the pavement, until she finally disappeared into the crowd. He did to chase her further. Instead, he pivoted abruptly, scanning the sea of moving strangers. His movements were frantic, but purposeful, like someone searching for a specific face in a rushing crowd. He ran toward a man this time, barking again, louder, more frantic. The man barely reacted, stepping past him without breaking stride. Another attempt, another failure. The puppy's breathing became visible now, rapid, shallow, exhausting. Yet he kept moving, back and forth, person to person, barking, circling, nudging, tugging. Every rejection seemed to fuel him rather than discourage him. There was no hesitation anymore, no confusion, only urgency, only need. It was painful to watch. There was something heartbreakingly human in his desperation, that refusal to give up, that instinctive belief that someone somewhere had to understand. He was wondering. He was lost. He was asking for help. Minutes stretched unbearably. The world continued to flow around him, indifferent, distracted, impatient. The puppy's small body began to show signs of strain. His steps faltered slightly. His bark cracked once, twice, but he forced it out again, louder, sharper, more pleading. Then he saw him, a man walking at an unhurried pace, detached from the surrounding rush. The puppy sprinted toward him, summoning whatever energy he had left. He barked directly in front of him, planting himself stubbornly in the man's path. The man stopped. Not fully, just enough to avoid stepping on him, but it was enough. The puppy barked again, eyes wide, tail stiff, body vibrating with tension. He circled the man, his legs rapidly, then ran a few steps away, then back again. Bark, circle, run, return, a frantic pattern, a silent message. For a moment, the man simply watched, puzzled. The puppy tugged at his pant leg, pulling with surprising strength. Then he released and ran several steps back toward the direction he had come from. He stopped, turned, barked again, waiting. The man hesitated. And the puppy, trembling, panting, utterly relentless, pulled once more, as if willing the human to understand what words could never explain. Something shifted in the man, expression, subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to change everything. Confusion gave way to curiosity, curiosity to concern. He glanced down at the trembling creature clinging to his pant leg, then followed the direction of the puppy. As frantic gaze. The puppy did too wait. He spun and bolted. Not the reckless sprint of panic, but a focused, urgent dash. His tiny body shot through the crowd, weaving between legs, slipping past obstacles with astonishing determination. Every few steps he stopped, turning back, barking sharply as if checking. Are you coming? Did you understand? The man began to walk after him, hesitant at first, then faster. The camera jolted wildly now, the person filming scrambling to keep pace. Street noise swelled again, horns, engines, fragments of distant voices. The puppy navigated the chaos like he had memorized the path, like every second mattered in ways humans rarely comprehend. He reached the roadside and stopped. His bark changed. Gone was the sharp insistence. In its place came something rawer, heavier, a strained, desperate cry that seemed pulled from somewhere deep and aching. The man arrived moments later, slightly breathless, his steps slowing as his eyes followed the puppy. His trembling stare. Then he saw her. The mother dog remained exactly where she had been. Curled awkwardly against the unforgiving pavement, her body still frighteningly motionless except for the faint, fragile rise of her ribs. Dust still clung to her fur. The world still rushed past, indifferent, impatient. But now someone was looking. Truly looking. The man's posture changed instantly. The casual neutrality drained from his face, replaced by shock, then urgency. He knelt beside her without hesitation, one hand hovering uncertainly before gently touching her side. The puppy rushed forward, his frantic energy collapsing into desperate proximity. He pressed himself against her again, whining softly, licking her face with renewed intensity. It was as though he was saying, "See? I brought someone. Please wake up, please." The man leaned closer, his movements quick, focused. He touched her neck, checking for signs of life. His brow tightened. He spoke words inaudible but tone unmistakable. Concern, alarm, action. People began to notice. A woman slowed. A cyclist stopped. Another pedestrian turned back. Curiosity rippled outward, small at first, then growing. Within moments, a loose circle formed, strangers drawn by the invisible gravity of distress. Faces shifted from mild interest to unease, then empathy. The collective awareness of something fragile, something urgent, something that could no longer be ignored. Someone crouched beside the man. Another voice rose above the traffic. A phone appeared. Gestures, movement, urgency spreading. The puppy stayed close, unmoving now. His small body pressed protectively against his mother, eyes darting between the humans and her still form. He no longer barked, no longer ran. His role impossibly seemed complete. He had done what he set out to do. He had made them see. The man accepted a bottle of water from someone in the crowd. He poured a small amount into his hand, carefully letting droplets fall near the mother dog's mouth. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. The air felt suspended, every movement slowed by anticipation. The puppy whimpered, soft, fragile then. A twitch, so small it could have been imagined, but it was. Her ear moved. Barely. The man froze. The crowd inhaled collectively. The puppy stiffened, eyes wide, body trembling with sudden hope. The man tried again, more water, more gentle encouragement. And this time there was no doubt. A faint movement of her head. Weak, unsteady, but real. Alive. The puppy's entire body seemed to collapse with relief, though he did step away. He pressed closer, licking her face with frantic devotion, tail trembling, heart racing in visible waves beneath his fragile chest. Around them, strangers transformed into something else entirely. Not observers, not passers-by, but participants in a fragile, unfolding miracle. The first real breath she took felt like it belonged to everyone watching. It was deeper, uneven, trembling, but unmistakably stronger than before. Her chest rose with effort, as though each inhale demanded a negotiation with exhaustion. The man leaned closer, his movements slower now, gentler, as if afraid that anything abrupt might shatter the fragile progress. The puppy did move. He remained pressed tightly against her, his small body curved along hers like a living shield. His tail quivered, not wagging wildly, but vibrating with a tension too complex for something so young, hope tangled with fear, relief laced with disbelief. The mother dog, eyelids fluttered. Once. Twice. Heavy, reluctant movements, like someone surfacing from a depth too dark to describe. The crowd seemed to fall into a strange silence, despite the traffic roaring just feet away. Sound existed, but it no longer registered. Every pair of eyes locked onto the same trembling moment. Then her eyes opened. Only slightly. Only for a second. But enough. Enough to change everything. The puppy froze completely. It was almost surreal, the sudden stillness of a creature who had been nothing but motion, urgency, desperation. His wide eyes stared into hers, his tiny body rigid, as though he could trust what he was seeing. Was it real? Was she truly back? Her gaze was weak, unfocused, drifting uncertainly before settling slowly, heavily on the small figure pressed against her. Something ancient and instinctive flickered there. Recognition. Connection. A silent thread pulling two fragile lives back together, and the puppy broke, not into panic, not into noise, but into something softer, deeper, unbearably pure. He collapsed beside her, his tiny legs giving way as though some invisible force had finally released him from a burden far too heavy for his size. He did fall dramatically, just a quiet, exhausted surrender. His body curled instinctively against her neck, his breathing rapid, drained, relieved. It was the first moment he truly looked like a puppy again. No frantic running, no desperate barking, only fatigue, only peace. The man exhaled shakily, emotion written openly across his face now. Around him, strangers visibly softened. Tension dissolved into murmurs of relief, into quiet amazement, into that rare shared human warmth that emerges when something fragile survives against expectation. Someone smiled through wet eyes. Someone wiped their face. Someone whispered words too soft to hear. The mother dog shifted slightly, a weak but deliberate movement. It was clumsy, strained, but filled with intention. She angled her head toward the puppy, her nose brushing faintly against his fur. A mother's touch. Slow, tired, but full of meaning. The puppy stirred at the contact, lifting his head just enough to meet her again. No hesitation. No confusion this time. Only certainty. Only love. He pressed closer, nestling into the space beneath her chin as if reclaiming a place he had fought the entire world to protect. The world resumed its noise. Traffic surged. Voices returned. But something fundamental had shifted. What had been just another roadside scene, just another invisible tragedy waiting to happen, had transformed into something else entirely. Something luminous. Something unforgettable. Because a creature too small to understand fear had understood love. Because a being with no language had communicated urgency more powerfully than words ever could. Because in a rushing, indifferent world, a tiny heart had refused to walk away. As the man carefully lifted the weakened mother dog, the puppy struggled to his feet, wobbling but determined. He stayed close, glued to her side, his fragile body radiating an unshakable loyalty that needed no explanation. And watching that small, exhausted figure follow the only thing that mattered to him. I did just cry. I understood. Heroes are not defined by strength. Sometimes they are defined by refusal, by persistence, by love so pure it changes the behavior of strangers. And sometimes, impossibly, beautifully, heroes have pause,